Hello, this is MTG Sly Guy with another Magic the Gathering deck tech for the Magic Origin Season of Standard. Today I'll be showing you a Jund build that I've constructed for competitive Magic in the Standard format. This is a quote-unquote grab and go deck that was inspired by a deck tech that I saw on YouTube on another channel for Magic the Gathering called Tutor's Library. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you check it out. It's a great channel for learning Magic the Gathering and the theories that go into deck building. So without further ado, we'll get started with the land base. We have 2 Mana Confluence. Tap it, pay 1 life, add 1 mana of any color to the mana pool. So, I mean, you ping yourself, but it's great for mana fixing in a 3-color deck such as this. Up next we have 4 Temple of Malady, the green-black Scryland. And then 4 Temple of Abandon, the green-red Scryland. And then 1 Temple of Malice, the red-black Scryland. So there's a lot of Scrylands in this deck, and there's a reason behind that. It runs a card from the new set Origins called Evolutionary Leap, where a lot of times you want to know what's on top of your library. I'll show you that card later. Up next we have 2 Llanowar Wastes, the green-black Pain Land. You tap it for colorless, or you can tap it for specifically a green or black, but you take 1 damage. Then we have 1 Wooded Foothills, the green-red fetch land, and 2 Bloodstained Mire, the red-black, not the Scryland or the Pain Land, the fetch land. Sorry. And then after that we have 2 forests, 2 basic forests, 2 basic mountains, 1 basic swamp, and finally an Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. Each land is a swamp in addition to its other types. So that's the land base. Fairly consistent land base. I haven't really had any trouble getting specific colors out. So yeah, it's just pretty nice. I think it's pretty consistent, and I think I'm pretty happy with it. Next up for creature spells, starting with 3 Satyr Wayfinders for 1 green, 1 colorless. It's a 1/1, and when it enters the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them into your hand and put the rest into your graveyard. So it's good for land fixing, and good for fueling a couple of the delve spells that are in this deck. So yeah, as I said, it's a 3 of. Up next we have 4 Sylvan Caryatids. It's a 0/3 defender with hexproof. 1 colorless, 1 green, and you can tap it to add 1 color of any 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So just again, good Banador, and good for color fixing. Up next we have 2 Den Protectors. It's rare from Dragons. It's a 2/1 for 1 colorless and 1 green. Creatures with power less than Den Protector can't block it, and it has a Megamorph, so you cast it for its morph cost, and then you Megamorph it to 1 colorless and 1 green, and if you do, it gets a counter, and when it gets turned face up, return a card from your graveyard to your hand. So for instance, if you bury a card that you want to get back with your Satyr Wayfinder, you can trigger Den Protector to get it back. A little bit of synergy. This deck has a lot of synergy. There's a lot of cards that work together in it really well. Next up we have Tymaret the Murder King. For 1 black and 1 red, he's a 2/2. And for 1 colorless and 1 red, you can sacrifice another creature, and Tymaret deals 2 damage to target player. Or for 1 colorless and 1 black, you can sacrifice another creature, and return Tymaret from your graveyard to your hand. So he's really difficult for your opponent to get rid of permanently, unless they have an exile spell or ability. He is a 2 of in the deck. And late game, if you have multiple creatures, like from token generation, or from taking your opponent's creatures, he's a great sack outlet, because he can finish the opponent off pretty quick if you activate his first ability multiple times. Next up, we have 2 Grim Haruspex. It's a rare from Khans of Tarkir. For 2 colorless and 1 black, it's a 3/2, and it's a morph card, so you can play it for its morph cost. And for 1 black, you can flip it up. And whenever another non-token creature you control dies, draw a card. So it's great card advantage in a deck like this. I can take my opponent's creature, swing in with it, sack it to some sack outlet, and then get a card draw from it. So it is a 2 of. Next up, we have 2 Merciless Executioners. For 2 colors and 1 black, it's a 3/1. And when Merciless Executioner enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature. So, say my opponent has 2 creatures, I steal one, attack with it, and then second main phase I play Merciless Executioner, sacrifice the creature that I took from them, and then they sacrifice their other creature. And then next up, a full play set of Deathmist Raptor, just because it's just really good. And pretty much any deck running green, I mean, the Den Protector Deathmist Raptor combo, just, I mean, you can pretty much build any deck around that. For this deck, it's just a solid foundation. So for 2 green, 1 colorless, it's a 3/3 with Death Touch. And whenever a permanent you control is turned face up, you may return Deathmist Raptor from your graveyard to the battlefield, face up or face down. And for 4 colors and 1 green, he can Megamorph and become a 4/4. He gets a counter on him. So yeah, that's a full play set. So that concludes my creatures. Next up, for non-creature spells, we have 2 Thoughtseize. For 1 black, target player reveals his or her hand, you choose an online card from it, and that player discards it, and then you lose 2 life. So it's good for finding out what your opponent has and taking out any cards that might affect what your deck is trying to do, which is basically take their creatures and use them to your advantage. Next up, we have 2 Evolutionary Leap. It's a rare from the new set Origins. 1 colorless and 1 green. For 1, it's an enchantment. For 1 green, you sacrifice a creature, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So what you can do is grab one of their creatures, attack with it, and then sack it to Evolutionary Leap, and you get to find a creature off the top of your own library. So it's good for advantage. It's a 2 of in the deck. And also, I have Xenagos in this deck, so if there's ever a situation where like I make a 2/2 Satyr token and I swing in with it or block with it, and it's just going to die anyways, I can sack it to this to get value. Next up, we have Life's Legacy as a 2 of. 1 colorless and 1 green. This is as an additional cost to cast Life's Legacy, sacrifice a creature. Draw cards equal to that creature's power. So again, I steal a creature, attack with it, sack it, and then get card advantage from it. It's a 2 of. Next up, 2 ultimate price just for removal. 1 colorless, 1 black. Destroy target monocolored creature. There's a lot of really nice 1 color creatures going around right now, and it's just good removal for 2 mana. It is a 2 of. And then next up, we have 4 Active Treason, which is the main card for taking my opponent's creatures. For 2 colorless and 1 red, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn, so I can use it to take my opponent's creatures. Another thing you can do in a tight spot is if you have an opponent that's attacking into you, you can use this to untap one of your own creatures. But yeah, mostly it's just used as the main means of getting control of my opponent's creatures so that I can attack with them and sack them for value. And then we also have from Journey into Nyx, Harnessed by Force, for 2 red, 1 colorless, and a strive cost of 2 colorless and 1 red. So you can do it on multiple creatures if you can afford it. Gain control of any number of target creatures until end of turn. Tap those creatures, they gain haste until end of turn. So again, if I have multiple creatures on the field and I use Xenagos' +1, sometimes I can use this for like a strive of like 2 or even 3 and just swing in for the win there. So it's a good card. Then next up we have 2 Murderous Cuts for 4 colorless and 1 black with Delve, destroy target creature. Pretty straightforward there. And then finally we have 3 Xenagos the Reveler for 2 colorless, 1 green, 1 red. +1, add X mana in any combination of mountains or forests to your mana pool where X is the number of creatures you control. The 0 is to put out a 2/2 red-green Satyr token with haste. And the -6 is the exile the top 7 cards of your library. You may put any number of creatures and/or lands from among them onto the battlefield. So he's good for producing mana, and he's also good for creating satyrs, creating tokens that I could possibly use to sack to my evolutionary leap if I'm in a tight spot and I need to find some creatures. So he's just really good in this deck, mainly for the mana production, but also putting out a 2/2 body is also pretty sweet sometimes too. And then moving on to the sideboard. 2 more ultimate prices just for added removal. Another Merciless Executioer, again for more removal. Another Thoughtseize for card control, as well as some duresses, mostly for excuse me, the control matchups, because you want to be able to stop your opponent from stopping you from doing what you want to do. So it's good for card control, hand control, and knowing what your opponent has. Wild Slashes, just for spot removal in aggressive decks. An additional Life's Legacy, just for added card value, card advantage if you're facing a control deck. Tormented Thoughts also. This was a deck that I considered, a card that I considered mainboarding. It's 2 colors and 1 black. As an additional cost to cast it, you sacrifice a creature, and target player discards a number of cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. Really good against control decks that might only have 1 or 2 creatures out at one time. You can steal them and sack them, and they basically discard most of their, if not all of their hand, because their creatures are usually big bombs. So yeah, it's really good for controlling your opponent's hand. Next up we have Frika. She's good for making 1/1s with Death Touch. If you bury your creatures with your Satyr Wayfinder, you can use them for value to get out snakes. And she's good for defense also. And also, if your opponent gets cards like their own Deathmist Raptors or Erebos' Titan from the new set, for instance, you can exile them and give them a 1/1 snake with Death Touch, which you can then steal and sack for your own advantage, for instance. It's just good for graveyard control, and can keep making sure that your opponent can't use Deathmist Raptors for their own advantage. And then lastly we have Scouring Sands. Scouring Sands deals 1 damage to each creature your opponent controls, and you scry 1. It's good for obviously token decks, like if you're facing off against goblins, or insects like Hornet Queen or Hornet's Nest or that sort of thing. It's good for that, and having the scry is nice too. So that concludes my deck tech for my Jund Grab and Go. I have been pretty successful with this deck so far. I've only lost 1 game. I haven't lost any matches. I've played 4 matches with it so far. The 1 game I did lose, it was basically a situation where I had a really bad opening hand, but it was playtesting, so I figured I should keep the hand just to see how my deck plays out of it for learning purposes. But so far I've had a lot of fun with this deck, and it's really good against a lot of the creature-based decks that are floating around Standard right now, like the green-red decks, the Abzan decks, and the Temur decks. Basically any deck that runs green, you're going to have a fairly easy time with the deck, as long as you don't have like terrible draws or get flooded with land or something. It's just so much fun, especially game 1, because nobody's really expecting the whole steal sack mechanic. As soon as when people see when they see Caryatid and Wayfinders and Xenagoses, they're thinking it's like a typical green-red deck, like a Devotion deck or a Ramp deck or what have you. So you can catch a lot of people off guard, especially when they see, like I said, playing like the usual green cards like Den Protector and Deathmist Raptor. They aren't really expecting the whole steal and sack thing, so it can be a whole lot of fun to play, and I highly recommend it. Again, the idea for this deck I got from Tutor's Library. It's another YouTube channel that I highly recommend you check out. And as always, feel free to like, comment, and please subscribe to my channel. And leave any ideas or recommendations you would have for what you would do to this deck to change it or to tweak it a little bit. And again, thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.